gentlemen, hello and welcome to another episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, and today I'm joined with someone that might not need an introduction, but it's Mr. Jon Hornik. Jon, thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm sure Jeff Tesh will be waiting for this episode to drop and give you some notes when you're finished up here, but thank you so much for coming by today.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. First of all, my pleasure to be here. We had scheduled a couple times.
Yeah.
And I think you guys had to cancel a couple. I did, so it's great to make it in. It's a nice day out in New York, so... Jeff Tesh is one of my biggest critics, and whether we do a conference or I give a podcast, I wait for his call, and he always calls and tells me how it is.
Yeah.
And it's good to have those people in your life
sure.
because there are a lot of people who just say, "Oh, you're doing great," and gives you the honest opinion.
Yeah.
So Jeff's
avoiding the yes man is a good thing to do in this business for sure. I think that's a good place to start, though, the common ground that we're both podcast hosts. I know you recently started one called the Bold Moves Podcast, if that's correct.
Yes.
So what went into that decision, and how's that process going for you so far?
So I'm enjoying it. I like having interesting people in. Now, it's not just focused in the private lending space. It's for people who've had some success and failure in their careers, and we're talking about their journey and how they got to where they are. So we just did Amani Toomer, Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Well, not Hall of Fame, but great quarterback for the Giants.
Yep.
We did Chef David Burke,
Okay.
who's a celebrity chef. We did the mayor of Jersey City, who's running for governor. We had Jeff Tesh, CEO of RCN, right up there.
There we go.
And others. But the idea is to talk about their journey and the decisions they made and what moves they made to stay the course or what they learned from their mistakes. And the concept is if you were talking to your 21-year-old self and giving them advice, what would you say?
Yep.
And it's really for the new generation coming up in the workforce so they could hear it, because I have a son who's 25, Ethan. He's amazing. And he's always asking questions, and I'm surprised about the questions he's asking, which means there's a need out there for career guidance. We like to say, to the extent any of us have success, it only took me 30 years to become an overnight success. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to stay the course and keep working hard. And my podcast is about bringing out the different stories from different people, and it's catching on. I enjoy doing it.
Very cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check out the Amani Toomer episode. It's not always good to admit that you're a Giants fan these days, but I grew up watching them for sure, and Amani Toomer was one of my favorites.
So when we sat down, I said, "Look, I got to come clean. I'm a Jet fan," right away. So he knew where I stood. So I wasn't one of these guys that were. I like the Giants, and I rooted for them when they got in, but I'm a Jet fan.
Yep.
And but he was great. I mean, gave insight from the switching from college ball to the pros. And he went through a Michigan program, and I asked him, I said, "Were you prepared for the NFL?" And he said, "John, it was like I never played football before when he got to the pro level compared to college." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I'm looking forward. That drops Monday.
Massive jump. All right, I'll take a look for that. Hindsight is always 20/20. That's an interesting way to look at it, right? Because you're always like, I should have done this differently. I should have done that. So it's great to have those outlets where you're actually feeding that information to the next generation, kind of providing them the roadmap, right? I think that's a great way to do a podcast.
So the real concept is I've learned more from my mistakes than my successes.
Yeah.
And everybody has failures and misses. And just the next time you take the shot, you got to make it or come closer. And if you have the resiliency to accept that you're going to make mistakes and go the wrong path, that's good. And that's what success is built on. Constantly evaluating, going, okay, I did this wrong, let's do it right the next way. And sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money. But if you keep that, and that's been a theme going through everybody I interviewed, this perseverance, this willing to outwork the failure. And I see that a lot, and that's something that I think has to be conveyed to the new generation. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't.
And the success is that much more satisfying when, you went through trials and tribulations, right? Like, there's honestly no road to success without them. But when you turn around, you realize, okay, I went through the ups and downs and now I'm here. It does feel all that much better, I would think.
Yeah, listen, I don't think success is a destination. I think it's continued effort. I see guys and girls who've been on top and then lose their focus or something distracts them and then they fall a lot. And they try to make it back, right? And everybody roots for a comeback always. So, and we have people in our space that's happened to. People who were once on top, who then fell back, and now are working to get back to where they are. So I'm not sure it's ever I'm here and done.
Yes.
Anybody who's truly successful never gets that feeling.
Yep.
They continue to put out how they got there, the methodology, and tweak it based on times and the effort, and then they try to stay where they are or increase.
Yeah. I think people that have watched the episodes now that since I've taken over as the podcast host, have learned that I love a good segue. And I think that perfectly goes into our next question of avoiding stagnancy, I guess, in the industry is kind of the root of the question that I'm going to ask here. How refreshing is it for you, for somebody that's done so much, accomplished so much, now you have a new challenge as the podcaster? You seem like you're somebody that's always looking for the next challenge or the next objective. So how refreshing is it to do that in the podcast format?
I love the podcast. I don't think we're going to monetize it. I absolutely enjoy it. It's almost like my giving back.
Yeah.
It's good for the overall brand. The brand experts tell me, but for me, I just enjoy getting interesting people in, and they're responding. Like I have a list of people who I want to come in. I have the CFO of the Jets coming in, which is a whole different twist on football, right? Like, how do you become the CFO of the Jets? Like, tell me how that happens. I mean, that's not something that was available for me to take in college, right? Like CFO of the Jets. So I just like sharing that. And one of the characteristics I think that I have that I want to share is you always have to be inquisitive and want to learn in everything you're doing. And even I've been practicing law 30 years, most of the time focused in the private lending space. And I still learn things on a weekly basis. I learned something recently that like I went home and went, wow, that was cool. Nice. Because I thought I had known everything and I did not know this fact. And it's good. You have to be inquisitive. You have to want to learn. And that's really what the podcast has grown from, continuing that learning process.
Yeah, and I think as it relates to investors, right, avoiding that complacency that, oh, I've done enough deals for this month or this year, right? It's always what's next, what more can I learn, who else can I connect with or network with that's going to take me to the next level. So I think that's a really important message for them to hear.
And for those who run organizations, constantly evaluating your organization, how can I get better? Because you had a good year doesn't mean you're going to have a good next year. Yeah. And you constantly have to be reinvesting in your most important asset, your people, right? You have to always evaluate them. And then technology is really important. And then watching trends, what's big, ground up construction may be big today, DSCR may be big tomorrow. And being the head of any organization, any lending organization, or on the advisory council or committee, or being the CFO or head of credit, you need to always be looking to change what is coming next. When you start looking back and going, wow, look what I did, I think you're finished. Yeah. It's just a matter of time.
That's a bad sign.
Don't look back. Yep. Don't rest on your laurels is the word that I always, my dad used to use. But look, okay, I did this. How can I get better each day? Yep. How can my organization get better? So we've had ups and downs in our space, slow periods where there's not a lot of deal activity. So I mentor a lot of different people, and they say, what do we do during the slow period? I'm like, take a look at your systems, take a look at your people. How can you get better? Use this time so that when the next wave comes, you could tackle it and conquer it. And I don't think enough people see it that way. They see the private lending space as a trade. Okay, I did this deal, I made money, I'm good now until I do the next one. Yep. If you're going to build a real organization that has enterprise value that someday somebody may want to buy or invest in, you need to constantly be reevaluating how you do things and how to get better.
Yeah, there was a lot packed into that answer too, and I think it kind of bleeds into my next question a little bit. So if you look at your resume, founder, chair, host of a podcast, you're a leader in a lot of different spaces that you can weave in and out of. When it boils down to it, what's the most important thing for you as a leader to remember every day? And then what do you want for the people that work for you? What do you want them to accomplish and kind of get to the level where you are and be leaders themselves?
So I am only as good as the people around me, right? It's anybody any leader who says otherwise doesn't get it, and they don't last as a leader. I am constantly educating, nurturing, and pushing my people to the limit to make sure they grow. I say it to my kids. I say it to everybody who works with me. The ability to succeed is to work outside your comfort zone. As humans, we said, okay, this is where I begin and end. This is where I'm comfortable. But all your skills that you've developed, you could succeed outside of that box that you've created in your mind. Take the step. Take the next step. And then encourage other people to take those steps with you. And that's how you build a meaningful organization. Our biggest asset is our people. And keeping them and nurturing them is my job, okay, every day. Because in this day and age, the new generation likes to move a lot, especially with work from home, which I have said from the beginning is a disaster for anybody running an organization. It's a disaster. And we at Private Lender Law avoided that disaster by calling people back very, very early in the stay-at-home process. So nobody in our orbit believes that staying at home is a possibility to work with us. And we've grabbed market share because of that, because we're still performing like we are a group, tied together. And, I walk the hallways every day. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what you're having problems with. Tell me the deals you're working on. How are the clients treating you? I can't do that if they're home, right? I can't touch. I can't feel. So that we put that as a major priority for us and our firm. And that's important for growth. So get back to your original question. Our people are most important. We're a team. We encourage people to work as hard as they can and take on as much responsibilities we can. Those who do that and grow, contribute to the firm, get rewarded both intellectually and financially. And those who don't, we encourage to keep doing it. What are you doing to make the firm better? And that's how you build something that's bigger than yourself and that will survive eventually when you're gone.
Yeah. For sure. I think there's two things there that I could really take away from. There's that old adage, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you probably need to find yourself a new room.
You're in the wrong room.
Exactly. And then it's something interesting that something so small as, being more aggressive in the timeline with having people come back into office, how that can make such a difference in the market itself, right? As you mentioned, you gain more market share by, not something that was like a massive or drastic overhaul. It was just simply returning to the office and having that community feel as quickly as possible.
It wasn't even a crystal ball. It was just old school. You show up to the office and you work all day. That's how you get it done. And the collaboration that happens when the learning curve goes very steep that way. If I'm sitting with a colleague and we're going over a fund issue, a Cayman's fund issue, and I go, you know what, bring in this guy because he needs to hear this. He's getting paid, I'm paying him to get an education. And he's going to take that with him. That you cannot do at home. When you're working at home, you're task-oriented. All right, what do I have on my agenda today? I got to get this, and this done. And after that, you know what you're doing? You're going to play golf. That's what you're doing. That's why no one can understand why golf has exploded so much, right? It's not like they had new golfers. People are taking off of work days and going to play golf. That's what happened. And look, we're going to have to figure out work-life balance for the new generation, but that's not how you build a meaningful enterprise.
Yes, for sure. Another good point there with the education, right? You're paying people to learn on the job. A lot of times there's that conception, okay, I graduated college, I've got my degree, now I just need to work, right? But there's still a learning process. There's still so many things to uncover and find out about your profession, your company.
I'm 54 and I learn every single day. In my early years, I worked at very large law firms and they owned me. I was working 80 hours a week, easy. And the only way I got by that was through the mindset that what they're paying me to learn. Where else can you get that? They paid me a lot of money to sit there and do the work, and I got better and better and better. And I knew later on I'd use those skills to build something that I was proud to be a part of. And if you have to go through that mindset, I believe, the new generation is constantly evaluating, is this worth my time? Am I above or beneath this? And that's not the mindset. You do everything because in order to master everything, you have to be able to do everything, from the most minute job to the hardest task. And you're never truly an expert until you could do it all. You can't give an assignment to somebody and not have done it or been able to do it or be willing to put in the time yourself. And people follow leaders who understand that, not the ones who sit, off their boat and give orders to other people to do the work. That doesn't work long term. That'll work short term, and you'll be paying a lot more for those employees to stay loyal. So that's all these things I've learned over time. You have to show up. I'm in the office every day, right? I don't have to be, but I am, and I'm there because there is a need for everybody to see me, to work with me, to go back and forth, and I'll continue to do that, but I enjoy what I do. I really do.
And leading by example is one of the most powerful ways to lead, too, I think, as well. So I think everybody is on the edge of their seat watching this right now. You're bringing the heat. Jon Hornik, thank you so much. The answers have been great so far. We're going to take our first break for the sponsors, and then we'll come back with the Money Making Minute, our first segment of the episode. Stay tuned. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insights and knowledge from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information right at your fingertips. Visit REIInc.com to elevate your real estate investment game today. Welcome back. This is Nate Zielinski with Uncontested Investing, and I'm joined today by Jon Hornik. Jon, we're going to get into our first segment, the Money Making Minute. So the idea here is to give our listeners out there an investment strategy if you've got one. It can be an app you use, a skill, a habit, a part of your routine, something that can be implemented tomorrow, this week, this month for our listeners, how they can achieve success quicker in 2024 and beyond. What do you got for us?
So the smartest guy I ever met told me the secret to success is finding what you do better than anybody else and doing it over and over and over and over again. And that is something I've modeled in everything I've tried to do. You take the complex and you make it simple. For an investor, if you are doing ground-up construction better than anybody else and you've perfected it within your organization, do it and do it better over and over and over again. Don't try to become the master of every type of deal. Pick one you could focus on and then be the master of that.
I think that's a great answer, too, because it allows people to be confident in who they are as well. Bring your skill set to the table, and that'll be enough. Yes, as we mentioned, there's going to be those times for learning, but I think to get that confidence that you need, it's relying on the skill set, relying on what gives you the confidence to be there, right? So I think that's a really good answer and something that people can take away and, just have that greater self-confidence in what they're doing is working and the skills they have are enough.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to add just for this is work ethic's important. Being willing to work hard, roll up your sleeves. I've always said, often I'm not the smartest guy at the table, but I would outwork anybody at any table. And that skill set is something I look for in the people who work with me at Private Lender Law, in the Private Lender Conference, in the NPLA, everything we do. That is an important skill set. Really willing to put the time in and work. You could make up for a lack of experience and knowledge by work ethic. And for investors out there, keep grinding, keep working hard. I mean, don't give up. We all have good and bad days. Learn from the mistakes. Take the wins when you can, and keep growing. It's really important.
I think, you can look across any industry you want. Pick a professional sport, real estate investing, being a lawyer, the legal field. People that love the grind always seem to rise to the top, right? You don't find anybody that's like, I gotta go to practice today, or I gotta go to work today, right? Like Peyton Manning is a great example. Tom Brady are great examples as NFL quarterbacks. You could hear as they're winding down in their careers, every season it was, when are you gonna retire? When are you gonna retire? Well, I still love practicing. I still love being with the guys. I still love watching film. So that grind translates to any industry.
It's great examples. It's love the process, love the work. I've said this. Hopefully, Nate, you love what you do.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't love what you do, find what you love, because you'll never be great at something you don't love. I legitimately love what I do every day. I can't wait to get into the office every morning, and I can't wait to see what the day brings. Some days are more challenging than others. Some days I leave, I'm like, oh, this was the disaster. But most of the time, I'm happy to be there. And that's important for everybody coming up today. So many people, you can't look at work as the thing you do for money. That can't be. The money will come if you love what you do and work hard. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're just doing it for money, you could do a lot of things for money, right? Yeah. And you spend too much time working to hate what you do. Yes. So for everybody out there, if you hate it, find something else that you love, but then devote yourself to that craft and become the best worker, owner, investor in the thing you love to do.
Mm-hmm. If I could ask you quickly about work ethic as well, is that something that grew up you kind of just knew you had? Is that something that you had to work at? Because I feel like as we're talking about the new generation and a few of these answers, right, sometimes that lack of motivation, that lack of ambition is kind of how they get characterized. Is that something that you thought you had to work on as you were growing up and kind of finding your way in the industry? Or did you just have that from like 10 years old selling newspapers and you know what I mean?
I've always had really good work ethic. I've always been willing to outwork everybody else. So that was, but the real question is why? What's the motivation? So go to somebody like Tom Brady. Why did Tom Brady win 7 Super Bowls? Tom Brady was one of the last picks for the New England Patriots. He was 4th on the depth chart when he got his opportunity. When he got his opportunity, he pushed himself, studied, and practiced, and became the greatest quarterback of all time because he was fearful of failing. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to be demoted back to 2nd, 3rd, 4th. He took his opportunity. It was there. And in his mind, in all his interviews, he says, wow, I did not want to not be the best anymore, or I didn't want to fail. So for me, in a similar fashion, I always want to be the best at what I do. And that is also driven by fear of failure, fear of not being on top. Yeah. So that's what drives me to work as hard as I do. I think, and if we're going to go back to pro athletes, a lot of guys, you see this, they win the heavyweight belt in boxing, right? And all of a sudden they get knocked out, a couple fights later, and they don't keep it for a long time. Yeah. Or they win the Super Bowl, and then they kind of don't ever have the season they had when they won the Super Bowl. They achieved in their mind what they thought was going to be successful. And then they're done, and they stop working and putting in the effort. There's no substitute for preparation and hard work. Mm-hmm. And if you ever feel satisfied and you're done, then you're not going to be able to compete at the level you need to stay on top.
Yeah, that's a great point too, right? Because work ethic is usually the buzzword, right? But work ethic is just the vehicle. Motivation is kind of what drives it. And,
that's the question.
Even if you have to create that chip on your shoulder, whatever can keep you motivated and keep you
who's
grinding.
Great at that? Michael Jordan. Did you watch The Last Dance?
I did, yeah.
He used to make up reasons to get pissed at people, right, to motivate him. Not that he needed motivation, but that's how he did it. Yeah. I remember, did you watch The Last Dance?
Yes.
And there were times when he was like, oh, I'm mad at that guy. Yeah. The guy didn't even do anything to him,
exactly.
right? But
the guy was like, "Oh no, here comes Michael."
But he got like he needed to be energized.
Exactly.
But I think we all have to find what energizes us to push through each day, to maintain the level of intensity we need to be competitive and to try to be the best at what we could do.
Yes. So another avenue I want to take this interview is the National Private Lenders Association, NPLA. That's a organization that you founded, and it hosts conferences within the industry as well. So what was the motivation behind creating that? And when you were creating it, what was your vision for it? And has that kind of come to fruition, or have you pivoted and found like a new avenue that you're like, oh, this isn't how I planned, but it's still extremely successful?
So I was a founding member, and we still act as general counsel. It was actually put together by Leonard Rosen, who I purchased the association and the NPLA conference from a couple of years back. But the organization, the NPLA Association, is the most meaningful organization in the private lending space. It has grown in ways that I could only have mapped out as the best path possible on paper, and it's happened. We are doing meaningful lobbying and legislation counseling around the country. We are educating on a huge basis. In fact, this afternoon, we have a fraud seminar going on at 4 o'clock, and you'll have 70 lenders chiming in to listen and collaborate. We have a leadership summit coming up in August where the top 50 people in the space were invited out to Salt Lake City, Utah, to come out and discuss leadership issues and the direction of the space. So the NPLA is super meaningful, and it's only as good as people are willing to devote their time.
Yeah.
I never want to be involved in an association or organization where you just pay your fee and you're done, right? You get their emblem, you throw it up on your website, and then you don't got to do anything else. That's nothing I want to be a part of. And I say this, and you can't just join the NPLA. You have to be sponsored by 2 members and then accepted in. Okay. And the reason is simple. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And if people are willing to contribute and they're part of our space and they're good people, honest people, they could join. If not, we don't want them. And that's the model that's having it grow. So I enjoy the NPLA. It's part of education and sharing, collaboration, and the space needed it. It was really desperate for it. And I'm really proud of what it's accomplished. And there's only bigger things for the NPLA in the future.
Very cool. That's a unique way to go about it too, right? As you talked about, you're only as strong as your weakest member. So to weed out any way that, somebody could creep into the industry or into the organization with the wrong intentions, I like that aspect of having 2 sponsors, right? Of like, you're coming into this and you're using my name and my reputation. So, you've got to come prepared. You've got to come ready to contribute.
And we have an ethics code that everybody pledges that they're going to follow. And you could be removed from the NPLA if a complaint is filed and you're not following the ethics code. Yeah. And that's really important, especially for a newish space like private lending. Yeah. And especially a place which has a history of, maybe some shady people, shysters, people just trying to make a trade, people not being forthright and honest. And it's really important that this organization exists. It puts out best practices. It puts out ethics. It puts out legislative updates. Everything that's meaningful to tie a space together is going through the NPLA today.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a bummer, right? Because as you mentioned, the shady characters are kind of the ones that steal the headlines, if you will, of when, it's the perception of the industry gets shaped. It's usually geared towards the shady characters, right? So it's nice to be able to shine a spotlight on an industry and an organization, an industry story with your organization that's doing so much and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, by way of example, the shady part of the business we like to call hard money. Okay, we're private lending, and that's a real distinction. And I give credit to John Beecham, CEO of Torah Capital Partners, a dear friend of mine, who brought forth this resolution in an NPLA meeting and said, I want to adopt this name, private lending, instead of hard money. And everybody's pledged to use it. And it makes a difference. When somebody calls me and goes, I'm a hard money lender, I wince. I correct them. I'm like, are you in private lending or are you a hard money lender? And then I go through the distinction for them. And those distinctions are important. Our industry is growing into mature, institutionalized private lending. Not the hard money guy who is lending cash to his buddy down the street and, collecting. No, that's not what this is. And that's what gives it a bad reputation. Yeah. So, but I also think that's generational. I think there's less of the new generation that's doing quote unquote hard money and more doing and joining the private lending space.
So as we talk about private lender law, for investors, it can be such a boots on the ground, narrow focus, right? They're working on their properties, overseeing their portfolio. They can tend to have a very narrow focus, and rightly so. So can you peel back the lens a little bit and talk about some of the deals that you've worked on that maybe has had a positive impact or something that you're most proud of that you oversaw that got to the finish line?
So private lender law acts as an extension of all of our clients. We represent some of the largest private lenders in the space and some of the smallest. We don't care how big you are because, quite honestly, some of the smallest guys grow into some of the biggest guys. Yes. RCN Capital being one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I started working with Jeff Tesh when there were 6 people at RCN. And it was called Entertainment Financial. It was an extension of the other business that's involved in RCN. Yeah. And did any of us know it would grow into the behemoth that it is? No. But we liked working together. So what private lender law did is we complemented our clients on execution, deal flow, regulatory advice, on foreclosure loss mitigation. We are a complete law firm representing private lenders in every aspect in every jurisdiction. So it's a one-stop shop. What we help improve on when we're involved in closing in the front end is we could quickly identify frauds, problems in the loan. I've been a keynote speaker in a lot of different conferences, and one of my taglines is all borrowers lie. They lie, they can't help it. It's like a disease they have. But as a lender, your job is to figure out, okay, here's the lie. Can I still make a loan? Is it material? And most of the time it goes to value, how much the asset's worth, because we're all lending against a value. So if they increase the value, lie about it, and you give them more, they put more money in their pocket. So that's the job. Private lender law has eyes on title, organizational documents, things from the beginning, and we constantly identify the risks. It's up to the client and the lender whether they want to go forward with that lie and that risk. And most of them find a way to do it. There's an old saying, points interest can cure cancer. Okay, I was going to do this loan at 7%. Now that I looked at everything and all the hair on it, I'll do it at 9%. Yeah. Okay, it happens. Yeah. So our job, and we take pride in that, is on the front end identifying that, and that's how I can't think of a specific deal itself, but that method and that methodology that we follow has helped a lot of firms grow because they don't make mistakes. And when you make a bad loan, your investors lose faith in you. Yes. And you can't grow. But when your investors trust the process and what you're doing, then they'll give you more money. And that's how you become institutional. A great example is Rock 360. We close probably 85% of their loans around the country. And they're one of the biggest table funders, if not the biggest in the country. They are excellent at what they do. And we're a big part of that. And we take pride in that. And we're constantly flagging things for them. And it's a symbiotic relationship. So that type of effort from private lender law is the best thing we could do for our clients.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I think that insight there is better than any specific deal that could come to mind. So thank you for that. We're going to keep rolling here. One more break for our sponsors, and we'll be back with the next segment with Jon Hornik. Thank you so much for joining us today. For expertise in faster and more efficient nationwide closings in the private business purpose real estate lending industry, or for efficient NPL legal representation for foreclosure and loss mitigation in every state, count on Private Lender Law. Based out of New York City and New Jersey, they are your one-stop shop for all your private lending legal needs. Private Lender Law is the preeminent law firm within the private business purpose real estate lending sector. They are the only nationwide law firm specializing in business purpose loan closings and foreclosure and loss mitigation. Whether you're closing deals, navigating intricate regulatory landscapes, foreclosing on NPLs, or seeking top-tier legal counsel, Private Lender Law is your ultimate destination. Learn more by visiting privatelenderlaw.com and follow the Private Lender Law LinkedIn page for news and updates. And we're back with Uncontested Investing. Today, I'm joined by Jon Hornik. Jon, you've provided some amazing answers, some really positive insights that I think our listeners are going to benefit from today. So our next segment is another opportunity for you to do so. It's called Deal Breaker, Deal Maker. The idea is simple, right? What causes deals to break down in the industry? And then what do you see as common themes of success when it comes to getting a deal across the finish line? Go ahead.
This is going to all boil down to the premise. Who gets a better deal at a loan closing? The borrower who's getting millions of dollars, or the lender who's getting a piece of paper that says, I'm going to pay you back $1 million? Okay? It's always the borrower. So keeping that in mind, the borrower should cooperate and give the lender every single piece of paper, due diligence he needs to get that better deal at closing. So often, people fight and said, well, this other lender's not requiring me to do this, or this other lender's not requiring me to do that. And our answer is always, well, why are you talking to this lender if you had options with other lenders? The truth is, they don't have options at other lenders, and they should give whatever you need to get that money because it's a better deal for them at closings. Successful deals happen when you have professionals on the other side who understand that premise, who understand that lenders, in order to tap their funding sources, require a certain amount of due diligence and paper signed. It's not up for negotiation. It's not up for discussion. So give them what they need. The ones who fight the process, the ones who say, no, I'm not doing that, have a hard time closing and end up falling apart. That's the main reason why deals fall apart. Lack of cooperation, lack of willingness to do what you need to do to get a deal closed.
John, another great answer there. Thank you. I think as you mentioned, it kind of all boils down to time, right? Time is one of the most important factors in our industry. And the quicker that investors can learn that lesson and just get right through to the finish line, cut out all the BS, I think it's really important. And I appreciate that answer too, because a lot of the times these segments are kind of meant to get those cliches and the lines that everybody's kind of heard before, but that direct kind of right to the point and kind of just looking in the mirror and being like, you could do this elsewhere if that's what you're saying, but you're here for a reason. So let's just focus on the deal at hand and let's move forward together rather than holding some phantom lender over my head.
Let's talk about all the lenders in the space, right? They're all getting their money from institutional organizations today. Every single one of those institutional organizations have requirements. RCN is asking for an extra paper they don't need. Don't fight them on it. You're not going to tap into their money resources if you do. So you got to get smart about that. The smart people, the smart originators or brokers or borrowers in the space know what to provide in the package and provide it ahead of time because they want to close. They're going to make time is money, and they're going to make their money if they could close quickly, finish their work, pay back the lender, and either sell or refinance the project. If you're fighting over dumb things because you think you're right or because your experience is that you didn't require it, it doesn't matter what your experience was. What matters is what that lender needs to do to tap their capital sources. Yep. And it's such an easy concept, and yet so many people fight on it. But those people aren't successful. They're just, they think maybe they get their jocks off by saying no and think like they're negotiating a tough deal. But I'd rather just close, use the money, and do what I have to do, increase the value of the asset, and then move on.
Exactly. Because the time you're spending, negotiating and being that tough borrower, you could be spending on finding your next deal, right? If you close the loan
time is money
in an efficient fashion, then you're moving on to the next one, and you're not wasting everybody's time.
That's right.
This seems like a silly question, but I do have a direction to go with this. You obviously have so much passion in all of your answers. It's clear that you deeply care about this space and about your role in it. But I do like asking guests about their passion project, right? Because this can be a very burnout industry for investors. 24-hour days, 7 days a week. We've talked about it with other guests before. Baseball games get missed, graduations get missed, important dates get missed. Yep. So is there anything outside of the industry that you find passion in that kind of helps re-energize you and recharge you, that makes you better in the space?
As a person, I get my energy from people, from interaction. So I always have. Like I could, this discussion gives me energy. I'm enjoying it. My podcast, the guests I have energize me. I've recently taken up golf. I am not a good golfer, but I'm committed to becoming a decent golfer as soon as I can. So I think about that a lot when I'm working, going, okay, how am I going to improve my golf game? What am I going to work on? I'm also the elected mayor of the Township of Marlborough, just reelected to my 5th term.
Congrats, that's amazing.
It's a long time. I've been mayor for 16 years. It was the town I was born and raised in.
Wow.
It's a town my late father served as mayor of from 1980 to 1992. So in my home growing up, public service was an expectation. And so that's how I fulfill that aspect of my life. So I wouldn't call it a passion project. It's not fair to call it a hobby.
Yes.
But it is my biggest non-family interest outside of the private lending world and all the things we touch there. And I do enjoy that. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy being fair to people, and that position helps me do that.
Yeah. And I was going to ask how it came about, but that's a very, very cool storyline there for the family tree, right? Of you being able to keep that tradition. So that's an amazing story, and that town is lucky to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think everybody should give back. I encourage my kids. They don't have to be Mayor Marlboro or so, but I think everybody in the communities they go and live in needs to give back. Yeah. You can't just look for your government and go, I pay taxes, you're supposed to do for me. I have done very well in both my public and private life just saying, what could I do for you? And not asking for anything back. And what that does is build relationship and good karma, and good things happen to people who do that. People seek you out in good ways when that happens. If you're one of these people that go, well, what's being done for me? People sense that. And you know what? People don't want to do for you. And that's a good general principle for within the industry, your career, and in government and in politics. Just be giving. Be more giving.
And I think literally and figuratively, you're tending to your own garden, right? There's that saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. Oh, it could be easy to be like, I don't like this town. Let me move somewhere else. Why don't you just invest the time and energy to give back to your community?
What have you done to make your town better?
Yep.
If you could say nothing, then do you have a right to criticize because you pay taxes? I mean, that's ridiculous. What have you done? And maybe you try and you get pushed away. Maybe it's a closed world and you can't get into. Okay, I can understand that. But don't just sit there and criticize. That's like a Monday morning quarterback. Yes. Everybody's great in hindsight. So get involved. I encourage everybody to do that. I've found it extremely rewarding.
Very, very cool story. Thank you for sharing. I think the next place I want to take this is the doubts that can creep into an investor's mind when they potentially have a bad deal, a bad stretch. They're considering going back to that 9-to-5 job that they may have left to try to pursue this. Was there ever a point in your career where you had doubts, and how did you overcome those? You seem like such a positive guy that loves the grind, loves the work that we've talked about. So I feel like it might be easy for you to kind of execute and navigate those doubts or those low periods, but I don't want to assume. So have you had those, and how'd you handle it?
Listen, everybody goes down a bad path the wrong way, but that shouldn't make you go back to something you disliked. You just got to find a new path and push through. We all find a way. Success is perseverance plus hard work. That's what it is. Do not give up. Find another way. Find another product. Figure it out. I was never fit for a 9-to-5 job. It just wouldn't have completed me. I did it for a long time. It was never 9 to 5. It was always 16, 18-hour days. But even then when I was doing it, I was saying, okay, this is going to lead to something else. And at the end of the day, they're paying me a lot of money to learn. I mean, that's amazing, right? If you could cut that deal. But that's somebody's perception. A colleague in the same situation would be like, oh, I hate this. I have to work all these hours. I'm missing this. I'm missing that. Everything is, you're battling yourself in your mind. That's all this is. And success comes from those who have the perseverance to overcome those self-doubts and the failures. And if you're really smart, you learn from your failures and then you come back stronger. So, perseverance, hard work, be hungry always, never be satisfied. Like we talked about the NFL player who wins wins the Super Bowl. All of a sudden he's, spending all his money and he's a big shot. He's not putting in the work anymore. The Tom Brady's win 7 Super Bowls because every year they bring it and they come back and go, okay, I gotta win this year. They never rested on all the past successes. And even in Super Bowl is the highest trophy you could win in the NFL, but in your personal journey, do not let self-doubt creep in and stop you. We all have it. Outwork it, persevere, and that's what success is made of.
It's the way through, not the way back.
That's right.
That people should be focused on.
100%.
Another great answer there. So I think the last thing I want to leave our listeners with is, if they've made it all the way through, which I'm sure they have, they want to find out how they can learn more from you, reach out to you, be a part of organizations. So is there any teaching, mentoring, any way on social media that people can find you or your organizations? So
I'm going to first do a plug for the Bold Moves podcast. So this type of discussion I have with people in different industries. So we did the mayor of Jersey City, who's running for governor. We did Chef David Burke. I was always interested in how do you become a chef? Real interesting story. I said, did you grow up in a house where they cooked? And he said, nobody cooked in my house. I'm like, so self-taught, really cool. Amani Toomer, Jeff Tesh, like all these people are coming. Eric Abramowitz from Rock 360 came in. I like learning. So tune into that. The NPLA is the organization that you want to join. We have a mentorship program. So I personally mentor some junior corporations and executives there. And the likes of Jeff Tennyson, CEO of Lima One, Eric Abramowitz, John Beecham, they all are involved in mentoring and sharing because we all have the same philosophy. We have to give back. So if you want to be mentored, join the NPLA. If you could be sponsored and let in, show up to the NPLA conference to begin your journey. You'll meet people, you'll grow. And then we're always available at Private Lender Law. So just reach out to us. We will always take your call and figure out where we could make your organization better and fit into your world.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. Jon Hornik is here, and he's here to help. Jon, thank you so much for your time today. This is one of my favorite episodes. The conversation was riveting. You brought a lot to the table, so thank you so much for joining us. And I'll let you get back to that busy schedule. I'm sure you got a lot to do today. I
appreciate you. Again, sorry about the getting here and the cancellations, but I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
Good luck with this. This is
Thank
great.
you so much. For Uncontested Investing, this is Nate Zielinski signing off. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.